Yeah, I think that's okay. Good morning, everybody. I'm multitasking here because I'm live streaming myself talking to you on the internet. So hopefully nothing will go wrong here. I've got no idea whether I'm in shot or not, but we'll see. Okay, good morning. It's good to start with a quiz. I'll start with a little quiz. On a scale of 1 to 100, how much do you love the internet? Okay? So, let's start. Will anybody say 20 or less? No? That's good. Good start. 40 or less? Okay, 40 to 50? Okay, alright, so we've got some people to convince here. 50 to 75. Okay, 75 to 100. Good. And I'm going to go for 200. Okay? I love the internet. The internet has transformed my life, and I think it has the power to transform everybody's life. I think it's one of the great powers for social good. Of course, one of the things is that if you don't use the internet, you think it's an evil thing. And the reason why people who don't use the internet think the internet's an evil thing is that the mainstream media like you to think it's an evil thing. And why do they like you to think it's an evil thing? Well, because the internet, the World Wide Web, threatens their audiences. So they will seize on any negative thing that ever happens on the internet. And they will use that as a reason to put out negative propaganda about it. And they will use it as an argument, as we're now seeing this morning. On the radio this morning, they were all talking about, oh, isn't it terrible, we've got to close Facebook down because people have been planning nasty things on Facebook. It's the same, you need to close the air down then because people talk to each other and they use air, when they talk to each other. The internet is wonderful. For every one negative thing that happens on the internet, there are millions of positive things that happen. The thing is, the media's not that interested in the positive things, so they don't report them. And that's one of the reasons why it's so difficult to get across the benefits of the internet to people who don't use it. Because their information comes from the organisations that have a stake in being negative about the internet. So, I love the internet. One of the reasons I love the internet is it lets you tell stories. And one of my big themes in the work I do is that we all need to tell stories. People think stories are for kids. No, they're not. Stories are not for kids. Stories are the best way of getting your message across and the best way of learning about things. I love stories. And the other thing is, the internet, the World Wide Web, unleashes our creativity. I never thought I was a creative person until I started using the internet. And then people said to me, I love that, that's very creative. And it's like, ooh. It unleashes creativity in ways you never thought possible if you start using the internet. And I believe that everybody has some sort of creative spark in them. And, if you can't paint, you can't draw, you can't write novels, whatever. You can't play musical instruments. I can't do any of those things. I might be able to write a novel if I put mind to it, but I never have done. But I can create stuff on the internet. It's a lot easier. And I use my creativity to do that. And I want you to all use your creativity. So, stories are just for kids, aren't they? Well, if stories are just for kids, how come Coronation Street and EastEnders get massive audiences? Why do they get massive audiences? They get massive audiences because they're stories. And people do love stories. Adults love stories. They love to buy into character. They love to follow characters week in, week out on a soap opera, for instance. And, what is one of the other things that's really popular? X Factor. I was asking people, what is X Factor? Okay, what do you think X Factor is? Yeah, talent show, singing competition. Those are the things people normally say. And I say, wrong. X Factor is not a talent show or singing competition, because if it was, it would produce talented singers. And I don't think it does. It's a storytelling vehicle. It's about telling stories about people's lives. That is the reason why people love X Factor. And at the end of the day, they couldn't care less who's the best singer. They want to vote for the person whose story they like the best. The best singer rarely wins, because it's the stories that are important. And of course, the TV producers have sort of hooked onto this now, and they will use any means whatever to try to tell a story. And it doesn't really matter what the people involved are doing, so they might be throwing themselves in swimming pools, they might be baking cakes. It's all about telling stories and about characters that are involved in stories. And one of the things they might be doing is they'll put them all in a room together and force them to interact with each other, because that's a classic way of telling a story. If I had my way, they'd throw away the key. Never let them out again. But, you know, it's a classic storytelling model, and another way of telling stories is to give people some sort of hardship. Because one of the stories that we all love is people overcoming hardship. You know? And one of the ways of overcoming hardship is making them eat kangaroo testicles and insects. Why people love this sort of thing, I don't know. But I know that they do. And so, overcoming hardship is a really important, powerful storytelling mechanism. And I bet everybody in this room has got a story to tell about either themselves or somebody they know overcoming hardship. And if you put them out there, people will listen to them. You know, none of this is new. Throughout history, our culture has valued storytellers. You know, I pick out three from random: Chaucer, Shakespeare, Charles Dickens. Fabulous storytellers. You know, the thing about Charles Dickens is his novels were all published originally in magazines. And that's why every chapter ends on a cliffhanger, because people want to buy the next. It was to make people buy the next edition of the magazine. Purely commercial thing. It's the same reason why those drums go banging at the end of EastEnders. It's to create dramatic tension. This is Gandalf checking his emails. There's no reason at all to be in this presentation. I just love it. But it just goes to show that we can all use these things. So, okay, telling stories using digital technology. I haven't got that much time, so I'm going to whip through all this sort of stuff. One of the things is every picture, you know, pictures tell 1,000 stories, and video probably tells 1,000,000 stories. Martha Payne, who was a 9-year-old girl in Argyll in Scotland, in 2011 started a classroom blog about her school dinners. And every day she posted a picture of her school dinner and a bit of text. And quite quickly, it got quite a lot of people reading this blog because people were quite scandalised about the poor quality of the school dinners. And so one of the things that happened was she went to a cookery demonstration, she got photographed with this guy doing this thing with the flames, and the local paper ran a story saying, "Fire the dinner ladies, here comes Martha." So the school didn't like this, and the dinner ladies at her school actually threatened to go on strike. And so she was told by her school she got to stop this, it's bringing us into disrepute. Of course, what then happened was that fanned the flames of publicity. Don't try and kill negative publicity because it will go, whoa. And so the media got hold of it, and it was a big, big story. School and local authority bullies 9-year-old girl. And lots of people went to her blog. And when they went to her blog, they read the background to the story. And what they also did was they clicked on a link that was on her blog, and that link raised money for Mary's Meals. Now, Mary's Meals builds kitchens for schools in Africa. And within a few days of the story going national, the money that she'd raised from Mary's Meals shot up from £5,000 to £125,000. Because people were reading her story, clicking on the link, donating money. It doesn't cost a lot to build a school kitchen in Africa. And there she is, opening one of those school kitchens. So, 9-year-old Martha from Scotland has fed thousands of African school children just by writing a blog and putting pictures on the internet. Pretty amazing, that. It's even more amazing when you consider that in lots of poorer parts of Africa where food is scarce, people don't send their kids to school because they're too valuable in the hunt for food and trying to bring food into the house. So, not only has Martha fed thousands of African school children, but because kids could get a free meal by going to school, people sent their kids to school when they wouldn't have done so. So not only has Martha fed all those African school kids, she's educated them as well. So when people say to me, this internet stuff, it doesn't really matter, it's all a bit peripheral, isn't it? It's not important. And I say, well, how else could a 9-year-old schoolgirl feed and educate thousands of other kids? You know? This internet stuff is important. It really is. You know, the negative side is you get to hang out with characters like that. Unfortunately. Okay, and so why do we need to take this sort of stuff seriously and tell stories? Well, let me tell you something. If you don't tell positive stories about your community, who will? Because I'll tell you one thing, they won't. The media won't. They won't tell positive stories about your community. Okay? Because they're doing stuff like this. You know, the new series of Skint I saw started this week. Don't know if everybody saw that. Horrible, harrowing. You know, the voiceover at the beginning of the programme said, this is a I can't remember what he said exactly now, but it sort of implied that it was everything that happened in that community for a year. So I said, oh great, so we're going to see some positive stuff, aren't we? Did we? No. We didn't. And I actually know the people who did the filming for Benefit Street, the first series, and they were told, you're filming a fly-in-the-wall documentary about a year in the life of this community. Of course, they then handed over the film, and the production company cut it all up and made Benefit Street out of it. You know? If you're not in control of the story, then someone else is telling it. And you can't control the message of what comes out of it. So we've got Benefit Street, we've got How to Get a Council House, we've got Immigrant Street, and we've got Skint, and there's lots of others of them. So the media has got it in for some of the areas that Big Local operates in, and we have to fight back and tell the other side of the story. So, and the next series of Benefit Street is currently being filmed in Stockton-on-Tees, and which is near Middlesbrough, for those of you who are not good at geography, and this is Middlesbrough football ground. You know, at least the Middlesbrough football supporters have started to fight back. But you see, people go along with this sort of stuff, and one of the reasons why they go along with it and they cooperate with it is they've seen what happens to somebody like White D, who is now a reality TV star herself, and she's in all over the TV, and she's earning lots of money and all sorts of stuff. So everybody thinks they can be the next White D. Whereas the reality is, the young couple I saw in Skint the other night, who ended up, one of them ended up paralysed. You know, that's the reality. You know, this sort of stuff can ruin people's lives, and it will ruin most people's lives. And not everybody ends up like White D.
Those series of streets written by a long time.
Yeah.
One of the main guys in that
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, but people still go along with it because they think that's going to happen to them. So, all right, let me just show you a little video. This is a little video of the sort of stuff I've been doing using the internet and technology. I get this to work.
On the internet, Stephen Fry tweeted about it and thousands logged on to watch it. Stuart Pollard reports.
From the village green to your computer screen. In this game they're counting the runs and keeping a close eye on the hits.
3 days after I had the idea, Stephen Fry kindly tweeted about it, which sent the whole thing mad. I've had people from America saying how pleased they are to be able to watch this traditional English pastime. There's people in Australia watching it in the middle of the night. We've got people from all over the world looking in on this little corner of England.
The idea was designed to prove what can be done with fast rural broadband.
I think Ray is one of only 3 villages in the country I know of which has got a fast enough internet connection to do this sort of stuff. So let's come here, let's test it.
Oh, well batted. And it's 4 runs.
And it's 4 runs to John Whitman.
Well done.
That takes us to 11 for North.
Commentary to the world came from Brenda. You broke
I am
the world, but you're not entirely...
I am entirely sober. No, it takes more than 1 pint
Oh, does
to
it?
make. Oh, yes, that's my friends here.
Yes.
More
What are
than
we
1
talking?
pint.
We do double figures before you take her off air, or...?
We take off air after 6.
6, right, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, there's still a way to go.
No.
It's all about a community event and friends having a good day out together and a bit of fun.
I think, a few of you thought, well, if it's not just my grand much, I better be out there, so...
The technology was at the cutting edge, but the same can't be said about some of the cricket. Stuart Pollard, BBC Northwest Tonight, Ray.
Okay, I show you that because one of my big frustrations is, what do most people use the internet for? Unless you're using it for your work, which some of us do. Most people use the internet for fun. It's fun, isn't it? That's what we do it for. And yet when we try and get people online, we sit them down in front of computers and make them do courses and fill in forms. One of the things I've had to deal with is people being sent to, because they have to have an email address to get a job. If that's your introduction to the internet, well, what do you think it is? You think it's some sort of punishment, don't you? The way to get people online is to show them that we're all having massive fun and they're missing out. That's my firm belief. The internet is a place where we can all have fun. And that's what we should be doing. So, some of the things that I've been doing, this is a project I worked on with Our Digital Planet, which had these big photographic exhibitions that went around city centres. One of the things we did was, we had these photographs were about how people use the internet. Because, one of the things I've found is that people who don't use the internet, they've sort of pigeonholed the internet. They think it's for this, or it's for that, and it's not for me. So, one of the things is to stick these things in their line where they can't miss them. These are people who use the internet. This is what they do with the internet. You have to try and get those messages across to people. That there's something in it for everybody. People don't realise how comprehensive the internet is. And the idea was, to grab them, once they looked at those pictures, they could come in, use a computer, get online. And this was another project I involved in with Leeds Federated Housing Association, in Leeds, naturally. And it's part of my belief is that you can't sit and wait for people to come to you if you want to use the internet. You have to go to them. So in Leeds we've got a bus, and it goes out there, and it goes to where people are, and it looks a bit like a nightclub inside, because that's the other thing I quite believe is, we took this bus to a housing estate in Leeds, and the schoolgirls came on, and they said, "This is wonderful. People don't bring nice stuff down here. Why have you brought this here? Why shouldn't people have nice stuff? I can go in an internet cafe in the centre of York, and it's all nice and bright and shiny, but then we expect people to go to gloomy rooms with old computers in them. Why not? Why can't people have bright and shiny when they're introduced to the internet? Because it's much more likely to stick then, And this bus radiates free Wi-Fi wherever it goes. I call it a digital ice cream van because it's an attraction to people, And it brings the kids down because they want to get online, use the free Wi-Fi. And of course, when the kids come down, we say to them, you have to bring your parents and your grandparents as well, because those are the people we really want to get to. And that also is part of my philosophy, is that when you talk about digital inclusion, it's a mistake just to try to target the individual who is digitally excluded. You have to target the whole family and the whole community. And one of the things I firmly believe is that we have to get everybody on board in this effort, because it has to be seen that the community and the family want them online. It's not just them on their own. The interesting thing is that we put all this branding on with these cartoons and stuff, and somebody said to me, "Oh, that's patronising." Well, actually, the bus on the right, we use that vehicle, the small one, on a temporary basis, and that's also got the same branding on it. And before we used it, that bus used to go round as a Leeds City Council van, and it was just white with the Leeds City Council logo on it, and nobody went anywhere near it. They were suspicious of it. When we rebranded it with all those cartoons and stuff on it, everybody wanted to come. It works, that sort of stuff. So, and this is the centre we've got at Leeds Federated Housing. It's bright and airy, it's shiny, people want to be there. It's a nice place to be. And then the other thing, one of my other beliefs about digital inclusion is, let's not scare people by sitting down at a computer and making them do stuff on day one, because that can be quite scary for some people. So one of the things that we've done in Leeds is we've done digital tea parties. And the digital tea parties, we have tea and cakes and all that sort of stuff, as you would expect at a tea party, but we also have iPads with Skype on them, so they can talk to somebody at another digital tea party somewhere else. And we have film shows of old Leeds shown via YouTube. People love that sort of stuff. And it might mean you don't get them, you don't put them off by saying, here's a keyboard, use this. Because their first thing, I very much believe that the first time they're exposed to the internet might well be watching somebody else use it. Don't force them to do something scary. But you see, at the end of the day, if we want to tell our stories, if you want to tell the positive side of what goes on in our communities, the thing is, these days, we don't need the expensive cameras and all that sort of stuff that the likes of Channel 4 have, because a lot of us have got one of these, There was a survey done which said that the 5th most popular activity on a smartphone was making telephone calls. When was the last time you saw a phone advertised and the strapline being, it makes great calls? That's not the selling point for these things anymore. This is a computer, it has more computing power than the computer that put the first man on the moon. It has digital media making capabilities, This phone I have here, and quite a lot of modern phones, will shoot HD video. Some people don't understand that, and the reason why they don't understand it is they hold their phones the wrong way up when they're taking video. So one of my bugbears is I see people taking video with their phone held like that. And that's how you get those videos with the big black lines down the middle that look like somebody's peering around the corner. If you hold it that way, you will get fabulous HD video. You know, as good as any. I've got a bit of audio which I've not got time to play you of a BBC cameraman saying he cannot, when he's editing video, he can't tell the difference between video shot on a smartphone and video shot on a BBC professional camera. These things are great. And, you know, and the really good thing about this sort of stuff is, if you find someone who's got a story to tell, you can whip this out of your pocket and get to tell the story there and then. You don't have to go back to your office and get the big cameras. You know. So I'm going to wind up. Just one of the other things I want to say is, this is a lovely, lovely man. I've never met him, but I've met him on the internet. And one of the reasons why I love this man is he's a guy called Dave Throop. And he proves a point that I have, which is that the internet is about human interaction. Because last year, when we had all those big floods, the Environment Agency, with the agency that deals with the flooding, got a huge amount of negative publicity. But at the same time, this is a guy called Dave Throop, works for the Environment Agency. He was out there rescuing people from the floods and tweeting about it. And he has his own fan club on Facebook and Twitter. You know, if all of their staff had been doing that, people would have a completely different attitude to the Environment Agency. So, you know, people tell me the internet's depersonalising things. I think it's the opposite. It's actually helping us build trust and relationships with people we've never get to build trust and relationships with. And my final point is, digital inclusion is nothing to do with age. There's a lovely man called Ron who I met in Bristol, who's 84. He was 84. And he's a wonderful person because he's got an open mind that wants to learn. It's nothing to do with his age. He wants to learn new things. And that's actually, you know, I think we all need to carry on wanting to learn new things until the day we die. I certainly intend to. 84-year-old Ron certainly did. He was a lovely man, and we taught him to use the internet because he wanted to learn. You know, it's nothing to do with his age. It's whether you want to learn. We've got an open or a closed mind. That's it. Thank you. I'm going to be back again later on to talk about some of the hardware and stuff. But hopefully, I want you all to go out there and inspire people that the internet is a wonderful thing and it's got so much in it for everybody. Thank you.
Any questions for John?
Yeah, it's just John Popham.
John Popham, Twitter. Okay, so you've heard. Sorry, Roy. Sorry.
The internet is the most insecure inland security system that's in the country. Now, you made a slight joke about the new this morning about Facebook. Facebook will request us by the security people on all occasions to release the information. The Americans turn around and say no. That information is safe for social strategy.
Yeah, I agree with you.
There's only two. Okay, if you turn around and say, put the system in place, then there's only two safe private systems. The ones that come out of America are being sponsored by data collection agencies. Everything that goes in, look at security in place, but at the same time, there's a background group which collects everything off your computer. Now, there's something involved in the app that when you're transmitting, which is collecting everything off your Facebook friends or email friends. So the spider's web continues. Now, that is something AOL UK is the only server in this country that when internet comes from abroad, there's a 20-second delay in Europe before it actually arrives in this country and it is scanned.
Okay. But how many people use AOL?
It isn't the internet. Now this was brought up by, I brought up with networking about 2 months ago. I took the emails and showed my computer down. And the one was where it came from. But the networking is not actually being covered by, in my case, always protecting me. Otherwise it could get through. Now this is the danger point. Inland security network. You've got to look at that rather than, yes, it's a happy place on the internet. if we go back 5 years, 500,000 of children in London who picked up by surveillance of the internet.
Yeah.
That's our problem.
Well, that's a positive thing. You know, I'll go back to what I said about for every one negative thing that happens on the internet, millions of positive things happen. You know, if we spend our time worrying about the negative things, then we'll never do anything, I don't think. And it's the modern communication method, so everybody will use it. People use it for evil things, they'll use it for good things. I read a blog post yesterday about the child abuse cases in Rotherham and elsewhere. And the fact is, you know, we worry about our kids' privacy. And the thing was, those kids weren't using the internet. If they were, somebody might have picked that up. You know? So I do think there are two sides to everything. And, you know, £91 billion, was it? Rob, you said that it gets exchanged on the internet every day, and fraud is a minuscule part of that. You know, and if people were that frightened of fraud, they wouldn't use it. So, you know, I just think there's also a negative side to everything, but I think the positive side outweighs it massively.
It's the thing itself is neutral. It's how people use it. So, for example, people have cars, some people stole them, but the majority of people use cars for good reason.
Yep.
You know, everything we have in life is neutral. It can be used in both ways. So I think for us, and particularly for things like security, it's I think those of us who were brought up with computers understand a lot of how it works, but the next generation who use it at a surface level have no real understanding of the concept around protection and security, and it's incumbent on us to teach them how to be aware as they use it. So I think the thing itself is neutral, it's how we choose to use it.
Absolutely.
Now, as a 15-year-old teacher, 3D, he's got the most up-to-date computer and printer I've ever seen. He communicates on a regular basis with his great-grandchildren in New Zealand. So that's the internet. And he just grew up his life.
Absolutely.
Great story.
Great story.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, John. That's been brilliant.
Thank you.
We just wanted to give you an opportunity now maybe to talk about some of the issues that John's talked about.